Hello, and welcome back to my Vestaria Saga 1 War of the Scions, out now on Steam. Clemency mode, low turn count playthrough. New year, old playthrough, same sporadic upload schedule, although it's going to get faster. I can promise you that, although you're free to doubt. Anyways, on to Chapter 15. Chapter 15 is a bit of an interesting map in that your army is divided into three groups. One in the north is meant to protect the NPC Garland, who is weak and defenseless against the bulk of the Imperial force. The central group needs to break through and talk to Athol, who is soon going to be leaving the castle protected by a knight called Zoe. And in the south, Zaid and his contingent must seize Redessa Castle. And for our purposes, the north is just a massive area for grinding. If you take long enough on this map, the Imperial forces can sort of threaten Garland, but the pace at which we're going means that they're just giant EXP balloons. They get nowhere close. In the central and bottom area, there are different threats to confront. The central group doesn't have to deal with a lot of enemies head-on, but instead has to deal with a bunch of archers, mages, arbalestiers, etc. Atop the cliffs. And because of that, we put most of our archers, people who could use hatchets like Ash, and a court down there. And in the south, there are mainly a lot of Waguri assassins, so we deployed our cavalry to move fast and cover ground quickly, as well as people with very high hit options, like Zayed with Ags's Crescent, and Anelia in general, because she automatically at least doubles everything, due to her multi-strike skill. If you're wondering what Dune is doing in the middle there, if you search that tower where there used to be a dragon, you get a Sage's Cloak, I believe. I might be wrong about the name of the promotion item, but anyways, that promotes mages. And it's our first promotion item for mages. There was one we could have gotten earlier, but we skipped it. So after dealing with the forces on top of the cliff, we're almost entirely done with the middle section. There's only one threat left to be confronted that I'll mention after. So this chapter, while it isn't as obviously turn-floored as, say, 14 or some of the other maps where we've had to recruit people or we're limited just by how far Zaid can walk, it is still pretty restricted. You'd think now that we have a dancer that maps can go quicker than just how far people can walk, but both the middle and the southern parts of the map take 6 turns to complete without Lydia, and she can only be in one place at once. So no matter what, this map takes 6 turns because we need to complete both objectives. And that really turns this into another, shorter thankfully, but another large grinding map. And we have some of the regular suspects for grinding, mainly Hilda, who, while she is getting very strong, we need her to be extremely strong for what she's going to be doing in Chapter 17. It's not just, she absolutely needs most of her stats to be maxed, and even that really isn't enough for her. She still struggles. And there are also some people who we haven't really been grinding before, and maybe it would have been a good idea to. They don't need that much help, but Helm and Irvin, who are kind of, discount cavalry, will be called upon to do some important things in Chapter 17, and getting them a few levels here really helps. But as you can see, the enemies in the top, they move towards you in small squads, which really stops them from being much of a threat at all to you. These green units in the middle, you can talk to them and visit their houses for rewards. I don't think they're in any serious danger. I've never seen them be threatened before. So Dune is another person who we need to get some kills on. Even though, and once again with the Bow of Aragoth, he has insane offense. There's a certain late game boss that he needs to take down, and the critical strength benchmark there is 8. We haven't really been paying attention to his strength much. He's 4 points short, and he also doesn't have an exceptional strength growth. I think it's about 35%, 30% thereabouts. So we do have to feed him some kills to make sure he reaches that on time. So yeah, there are just a lot of different people who need to hit stat benchmarks. I suppose now is as good a time as any to discuss the second biggest threat, well, the other big threat in the central group. For the central group, which is that the boss has Imania, which is a 2 to 7 range tome that confers the Berserk status. And I mean, this is bad enough, but another issue, so it's very hard to jump onto the boss, especially because of the trees around them, and make sure that he doesn't get a Berserk off on you first. But further compounding issues is that he has the First Blood skill, I believe it is, which makes so that he always attacks first. So even if you can get someone within 2 range of him, as Silton can, a lot of runs can be ended by Silton just getting berserked. So there's a Lullaby Knife assassin there that can put Zaid to sleep and ruin our run, but we position Imelia so that there's no chance of that happening. While we continue to feed Helm kills. The enemies here can be sort of challenging. In particular, we have Zaid walk across the mountains rather than go around the top. This ends up both ways. It'll be a 6 turn, but if Zaid goes south, he has to encounter fewer enemies. And one of the some of the dead shots, or snipers, I guess, can straight up kill Zaid if you're unlucky. So it's better to have him go through the middle. So as you can start to see in the bottom right is kind of this fortified position with a lot of long-range enemies, some promoted enemies, and you'd think it could be quite hard to take out, but for some reason the dead shots, I believe, barely move, and the boss, whose name is Thoranius, he's the final boss of this game, he's going to leave pretty soon, as soon as Zaid gets too close. But from now on, we're going to refer to Thoranius by his real name, which is Donald Trump Jr. So there's one last Buguri assassin lurking in the trees. If I do a bunch of random cursor movement, it's to make sure I know where the Buguri assassins are. I think their movement can be slightly randomized, or maybe I just don't remember very well, but either way, we're nearly done in the south. And the center, well, and the top. One thing that you have to pay attention to, though, in the top area, is that one of the priests has the Staff of Slumber, and that can obviously put people to sleep, which someone who's somewhat tanky by now, like Hilda, isn't really going to suffer much from being put to sleep, other than the fact that she isn't able to get more experience. And she's near maxed in all of her relevant stats at this point, but we still want her to get more points of HP because she needs all the help she can get in the challenges that are about to face her. It's interesting how both Silton and Holan can talk to the people on the villages to get them to go away, and no one else can. I guess, even though Holan isn't a lord anymore, Kaga still felt like she should have the privileges of a lord, like Silton. And sadly we can't. We buy a Knight's Brand here. Even though there's a big shopping opportunity soon, there sadly isn't an opportunity to buy more cutlasses, but we only need one Knight's Brand, and a Knight's Brand is pretty much just a stronger cutlass. So we buy one of those. It's a bit of an expense, and we sadly couldn't get someone with. bargain there, Maya, but we have enough money. It's not a big deal. So we now take advantage of a 5-turn save to rig the last point of defense on Hilda, so she gets 13 defense, which is unfortunately her cap. It's unfortunate. I think across the board, Ash and the male axe fighters have slightly better caps than Hilda. Maybe her speed cap is a bit higher. And even an extra point of defense would really be nice on Hilda, but sadly, we have to deal with what we're dealt into this game. So as soon as the boss on the central castle is killed, Silton can walk through it. And even though I said with Lydia you could get there in 5 turns, I was slightly suboptimal in my movement, and it doesn't matter because Zaid isn't going to reach where he's going until turn 6 anyways. So, with Zaid quickly approaching Redessa Castle like the coward he is, Donald Trump Jr. runs away, and now we just kind of wait on the edges. We don't have to charge in and deal with the rather nasty dead shot, because they aren't going to move out to attack us, and we don't want to take any risks at this point. You can see Dune gets a very nice strength level, putting him close to where he needs to be. And I believe Zaid has a small chance of death here, which was probably a bit sloppy on my part, but... So, now I'm going to talk about, now that this map is effectively over, I'm going to talk about the shopping spree that's about to ensue. Chapter 15X of this game is a map designed just to shop, buy a lot of things. There are also some enemies you can deal with. Because of the way that the map works, you have infinite moves on in Chapter 15X, except for when there are enemies on the map, and then you don't have infinite moves. Units aren't automatically refreshed when they end turn. And what happens is, if you clear all the enemies who spawn when you do one of the enemy spawning events immediately, then you can have your dancer go around and refresh all the people who lost their turn when there were enemies on the map. But anyways, doing this is important to beat kills to your units, especially because the enemies that you spawn at 15X are extremely high level, like deliberately so, to give you more experience. But it takes just a huge amount of time to just go through the motions of actually buying all that needs to be bought and attacking and refreshing everyone and so on and so on. So while I'm going to include that for completeness after this, I don't suggest you watch it. The main purchases you should really look out for in 15X are the large number of promotion items I buy. I get pretty much everyone promoted except for irrelevant people like Prody, Bonacel, and Halden, and also the large amount of Thaumites I buy. And these are all loaded onto Silton's team, which you'll see why in Chapter 19, but there's a very important item that has to be repaired a lot very quickly. So with that, I'll see you next time with a soon forthcoming video.